Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio. With me today is Lauren Kopishke.
Yes.
It's a hard name to say.
It is a difficult name.
But that's okay.
Yes.
Lauren is the tell me what it's like. I call her the Director of Planning and Zoning, but I think there's another title. What is it?
It is essentially the planning director for the town.
Right.
And I'm also the town zoning administrator as well.
It's really an important job. It's one of those jobs that really people don't really know what you do until they need to use your service, But it's important because part of what she does is planning. Mm-hmm. And every so often the town gets together and the county and governments all around the country, and they put together a comprehensive plan of like what we're going to do in the future. What's our goal? What are we going to look for, right? Is that kind of what the thing is?
Yep.
What are we shooting the target?
Yes.
This is where we want to go. And that kind of determines, the zoning and where you can put certain kind of businesses and everything else. And it's that time again.
Yes.
So this is called the Comprehensive Plan Update Project. What are we going to call this?
So this is, we are rewriting from Royal's comprehensive plan. So the current comprehensive plan was last approved in 1998, I believe.
Wow.
Typically, we review this every 5 years, and I know Planning Commission has been working diligently on this for some time. Mm-hmm. But what we have done is we have hired Summit Engineering to assist the town. They are helping us with, so far we've been in the research phase. Now we are starting the public input phase. And this will give us a draft plan within the next 2 to 3 months. And then we're also, in conjunction with this, rewriting the zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance as well. So comp plan is your big picture view. What will Front Royal be in 30 years? It discusses general land use categories. The zoning ordinance tells you what uses can be done on certain parcels. And then the subdivision ordinance actually gets down to, what are the setbacks? What are the
where I can put my
plan
fence
requirements.
My shed, right?
Yep. So zoning, we have some of that in the zoning ordinance, but the subdivision ordinance is really that at that parcel level.
Right down to the property you own, right?
Yes. Yes.
What you can or can't do, or what it is, and you studied this in school, but you look at some places, people think, well, this is my property, I should be able to do what I want, but zoning is important as what adds value to our property.
Right.
Isn't that right?
And zoning is concerned with health, safety, and welfare. So everything that we do, we don't want to come in as the town and say, you can't do this because we don't want you to.
Right.
We have to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Where does one person's property rights end? Well, it's when another person's begins. And we walk that line.
Which we always say,
you don't want to be a nuisance.
At the end of your nose. That's
yes.
right.
Yes.
But it is important. It's zoning because, people say, I'm moving to West Virginia. They don't have any zoning. Well, they don't have any zoning.
No,
so
don't.
Basically, I can build my McMansion here and I can pull a trailer up right next to it. That's typically what we think of zoning, where we can't. You can't do that.
No, because technically that trailer could be considered an accessory use.
Right.
And so you have a primary use on the property. Anything else is accessory,
right,
or subordinate to the
primary use. And
you
got your neighbor. You've spent all your time and get your property all fixed up, and the guy next to you has got his grass, 2 feet tall.
And so with tall grass, I know it may seem petty at times, but the point of making sure the grass is trimmed is to prevent ticks and insects that can spread diseases. That's that health, safety, welfare.
Well, like I said, you can carry it a little too far. It's a fine line. I know that you don't want to look like you say being the Nazis. The Gestapo's coming to the.
You don't want to be the big stick of government here.
No. I think you want to give them reasons. So, but this is not all done in a vacuum. This is not something you guys just sit around the table. This is what we're going to do.
No, this is a very public and transparent process. So every document that we put together is put on our comprehensive plan website. Anybody can access that on the town website.
Right.
When you go to the home page, there's the first little round button you see on the page. It's got a picture of the gazebo. Right. That is our link to our comprehensive plan page.
Okay.
And there you will find every document that we've done so far. You will find the scheduling information for all the public input sessions. There are surveys. There's interactive maps where people can put a pin on the map and say, this is, my favorite place in town, or this intersection needs some work. or we should have a stop sign here.
Right.
Those types
So
of
what
things.
we're looking for is input from the public.
Yes.
And it's important. It's nothing worse than, we're armchair quarterbacks. We sit back and
Mm-hmm.
complain about it. But I said, did you fill out the survey? Did you tell them what you, no. Well, it's kind of like voting,
Yes.
You don't like the people that got elected, but you didn't vote.
Right.
So, and it's the same way here in the plan. Maybe if enough people go and say they want this or do that or don't want something, people look at it and take it notice. But if they don't hear about it, they're
Right.
out of sight, out of mind. It's kind of what it is.
And from a planning perspective, you want as much input as you can possibly get into these plans, because this is, for us, what will Front Royal be in the next 20 to 30 years?
Right.
Where do we want to focus density? So where do we want commercial development, industrial development? Where would we like to see townhomes versus single family? These are the decisions that, or the input that I need to make these decisions.
And people don't realize that, why don't they build these houses here? Or why don't they build more apartments here? That's zoning allows to do that, and that incentivizes developers
Right.
to come into that area because they know that their investment is going to be protected because of the zoning. And that's really kind of what the zoning does. It kind of ensures the developer that, all right, somebody next door is not going to make
Well,
a
it
trailer
tells
park.
them what they can do.
What they can do, and they know that if I put a really nice apartment building here, some guy's not going to build something next to it that'll distract from my zoning.
Yep.
And it's important to have those
Yep.
those restrictions.
And in
on
the
things.
last, so historically, there was a court case, and it was Euclid versus Ohio, and basically that coined the phrase Euclidean zoning. That's where we traditionally separate uses. So industrial goes in one section of town, commercial goes in another, and residential goes in another, and you keep them apart. But I think that there is more of a shift towards more of a mixed use element, and we're finding that truly prosperous and unique communities aren't just completely separated by use, and that there is value to having a mixture of, commercial and like having institutional, so schools, churches,
Sure.
everything like that, in a nice walkable community.
That's kind of the big push now. The things we're reading is about, we don't realize that our communities of the past were very walkable.
Yes.
They were built around a nucleus. And then we went through that era of sprawl, so to
Yeah.
speak, where the inside kind of died and it just kept going out,
And it became
out.
automobile dependent and not walkable.
Exactly.
And I think what we want to do is kind of get back to more of those walkable communities where you don't have to drive 10 minutes to get something that you need. You can walk down the street.
Right. It was kind of like say you go back in time where our main street, everybody lived above their shop and worked down below. And,
Yep.
and you're seeing a lot of cities going back to
Yep.
building their apartments and livability things over the commercial development.
And part of this process, so on Friday, I have maps for the different planning areas of town. So we have 15 planning areas that the town's been broken up into. And I would love to have input from the community. Where would you like to see a mixed-use town center?
Right.
Do people in this town want to see vertical mixed use, which is where you have a multi-story building and you could potentially have shops or restaurants on the bottom, maybe some office space on the second or third level, and then residential units up top. So
Right.
whether that be apartments, condominiums.
Right. Well, I was just down at Reagan Airport, and you see that they have some shops here. Then there's a hotel for the next 7
Yes.
floors, and then there's apartments
Yes.
above that. So yeah, you're right. People do mix use. And I knew somebody that lived in a place like that, and he said, "Yeah, I just go out of my apartment and ride the elevator down to work."
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a place for that.
There's some value to that. And, I want people to understand that there really isn't a no growth or no change option
Right.
here. The community and the towns and everywhere is changing.
It's going to change whether we
Right.
Let's-
This allows us to control it and direct it
Right.
in a way that's amenable to the community.
Right. Well, you mentioned this input, and I heard you say the word Friday. So something's planned. So what do we got planned
Yep.
for? And it's this weekend.
Yes. So this Friday, on Friday, we have one session coming up. So that will be at the Warren County Public Safety Building. And that will
That's
be
the sheriff's office.
Yep. And that will be from 12 to 2.
Okay.
And staff has planned we call it a charrette in planning. So that will mean that we will give a brief presentation on the comprehensive plan, what it does, why it's significant. We're going to have representatives from VRT, so the Virginia Regional Transit, also giving a brief presentation. And then we are going to have maps that people can write on and say, okay, this part of town, this is where I want to see mixed use, or this part of town is where I want to see a trail or some conservation area. We will take all of that input together and come up with a future land use map that will be a decision guide or a policy guide for future councils, planning commission staff to follow, to bring these ideas to fruition.
Right. And what we want to stop doing is having these spot zoning things,
Yes.
And that's the problem. We'll blame that on our town councils and our politicians that come in, and that's part of, and I know it's not the subject, but it always comes up. It's the good old boy network, and they'll go in and spot zone something because that's the perception. It may not be true.
Borderline,
Perception.
some legal issues, yes.
Yeah, but there's some perception there that happens. Probably happens a whole lot less than we really realize, but it has that perception. But people still have to jump through a lot of hoops to get that done, and people go through the process. But that's the one thing I think we want to try to eliminate. Well, no, here's the map that was approved, and you just didn't look at it.
Yeah, and we want the community input because, again, this is supposed to be a very transparent process. But what my office is really working on, too, is consistency. So in the last 8 months, we've worked really hard to develop checklists so that when developers come in, I hand them a checklist with the application, and that way there's no surprises. They know what to expect. These are our requirements per the code. This is what you supply, and then we look at the application.
Right. Well,
We can't continue to,
don't
I
waste
can't
your
accept
time.
napkin drawings.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of how I do things.
Right.
But you want to look through the checklist, and that way, before you go and spend all your time and money and processing, do I meet these? Oh, maybe I better think of another location, or maybe I make my change. Now's the time to make the change, not after you've had thousands of dollars spent in engineer drawings and everything else.
Please come talk to the planning and zoning department before starting any development project.
They're from the government, and they're here to help you. But it's true.
You can waste a lot of money
Yeah.
by not having a discussion ahead of time.
Yeah. It's so easy. She's very approachable, and their office is very helpful. Everyone down there has been so helpful. So this is going to be happening this Friday. Excuse me. Let me turn this around here and if I can read it off here. So we're going to be at the Warren County Public Safety Building. That's really across from Skyline High School. They've got a big meeting room upstairs in the sheriff's office, and from noon to 2. And they do want our input on that, so we want to show up for that. Then we're going to give the next day, Friday's kind of a strange day, people are working. So the next day on Saturday, we're going to be down at the town hall, and that'll be from 10 a.m. to 12, and then again from 2 to 4 o'clock. Also during that time, let me mention 2 o'clock on or noon, I got to figure out the exact time, but there's activities down at the gazebo, the pavilion area.
Yep. The Wine and Craft Festival, I believe.
Yes, that's going on, and the schools got their project where they've done some enrichment programs, and they're talking about all the great things that are in our community. And these third, fourth, and fifth graders have researched things around town, of things that they like about it. Of course, I asked the teacher about it. She said, well, they all pick CNC ice cream. I mean, so everybody can't research that, but they did. And it's amazing. I was talking to 3 of them yesterday, the things that they've come up with, like the Guard Hill House and the Ivy Lodge and all the different things, and that they really got into it and learned their community. And that goes back to what we're looking here is we have so much in this community.
Yes.
But we can build on that.
Yes.
And look at it, how much do we want to put in our corridor? How much we want to push here and how much we want to go there. And
we have a significant floodway area in town. Should that be conservation? Right now it's zoned industrial.
Right.
Those industrial and floodway and flood zones don't tend to mix.
Right. So maybe we need to put something, when Commerce Avenue was built, that was literally just empty. That was our floodway, and there was nothing there. And then we built a bypass. And next thing, if you build it, they will come, And next thing you know, buildings started popping up here and there, and it was zoned industrial because you can't build a house in it. So, and that's what you get. And
but these are things we need to think about.
Right.
Where are certain uses appropriate in town?
Yeah. If you could go back and erase everything and do what we're doing now with greenways and it'd be beautiful. It'd be a great...
There are places in this country that have been planned from the ground up. Just planned communities. Reston, Virginia,
Right.
for one,
Right.
Was a planned community. It was
Master
it was
planned
created-
community. That was
Yes.
the big buzzword. You know, I
Yes.
remember that.
Yeah.
I was out in Mesa, Arizona, and that's been there since 1800 and something. Went out in west, and the Mormons had settled that area. Main Street is 300 feet wide,
Wow.
and that was the original plan of Main
Right.
Street. Can you? Because old West days, they barely could get a road down, and because
Yep.
I can remember different places where there used to be a road there. Now the houses and everything's gone because they widened the roads
Right.
and stuff. But I always thought that was a planning. They said, they planned for wide roads in Mesa, Arizona, like 300 feet.
So that's another thing here. As part of this process, we're very fortunate that we will also be rewriting the zoning and subdivision ordinance in conjunction with this. And do we want to narrow some of our public streets? Do we want to look at having maximum parking standards instead of minimums? Do we want to look at, changing some of the setbacks to allow for a larger building on the site? Do we want to look at things like form-based code where we have an architectural style that's kind of standard? And the developers and builders build to that.
Right.
A lot of the feedback we've received so far is that, we don't want to be anywhere USA. Front Royal has this small town charm, and we want to preserve it.
Sure.
Capturing that in a form-based code, I think, is the way to preserve that.
Right.
But these are all things that I need public input on.
Right. And like we have a tendency to, you've talked about different kind of zoning for residential, and we have kind of a R1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe we need to. At the time, those had purposes, but they've kind of blended together. We have multiple family in R1 just because they've done it,
Right.
and it's been there. And a lot of communities have gone to, I guess the kind of the phrase is mother-in-law apartments,
Right.
built into secondary, multiple families living in their backyard, so
Yeah.
to speak. And that's been a big thing, and especially in places that have housing issues.
Yes.
And the cost to build a small place, and there's a place for that.
But that's something we can look into here. If there's enough community input that, hey, there's a shift towards multi-generational living.
Right.
How do we facilitate that? Well, yes, you can build a granny pot in your backyard.
Right. And we have we have certain minimum lot sizes. Well,
Yep.
Now there's a whole big movement. I call it the tiny house movement. I don't know if I
Yes.
want to go that tiny.
Right.
But here we are. In our family. Our kids are grown, and we ended up with a house. We got too many bedrooms. We live in.
Right.
You
Maybe 3 or 4 rooms in the
yeah,
house.
yeah, and so you live in a very small space, and I keep telling my wife, this is all we need is a 1,000 square foot house,
Yep.
and they don't build those anymore. And yet, when you look around town, there's a lot of them, and we end up moving up, and it's such for a short period of time. I tell people, don't be buying a house when your kids just starts high school, because trust me, in 4 years they're going to be gone, and you're going to be living in this gigantic house. You've lived through the hard part with one bedroom,
Yep.
one bathroom, and 2 bedrooms. You know what I mean? So. Trust me, you will not want to do that. But maybe we need some things like that, and we need to go back to some single level homes. And we
Yep.
over the years we built up, but as you get older, people don't want to go up.
And that's another type of, I don't know if movement's the appropriate word, but it's called universal design. So these are homes that people can age in place.
Right.
So when you have a 2-story home and all the bedrooms are upstairs, at some point the stairs may become too difficult.
Right.
You sell. But some people don't want to because they've lived in that home for most
50
of their
years,
life.
yes.
Yeah, there's memories there. But what zoning needs to do is kind of get out of the way a little bit and allow for us to incorporate universal design in a way that is affordable.
Right.
So zoning, there are certain restrictions that can just by their very nature increase the cost to develop. I would like to kind of, I don't know if zoning minimalism is the right way to say it, but I think that's maybe the approach that we should be taking.
Right. Less is more.
But I'm one person. So
Right.
if the
But
community
if we get enough
says that,
input,
yes.
that's what it's about. Put some input into it and let
Yes.
people know, like, well, we don't want that in our backyard, but yet, and that's what it's about. If,
Yep.
if the community doesn't want it, well, then we'll move on to the next
Exactly.
cycle and go through it. But it's important. So remember, it's Friday at the Safety Building across from Skyline Drive. That's noon to 12. You'll hear some presentations. If you have time, get there and fill it out. If not, go there on Saturday. Go downtown.
Yep.
Excuse me. These allergies, I tell you,
It's been bad this
I
year.
had to go to the doctor, and they said, "Oh, COVID test and flu test and pneumonia test and everything else." But no, them allergies. I said, "That's what I told you." But it's getting better. So I go around town. I see everybody carrying a box of tissues with them everywhere they go.
It is certainly that time
Well, Lauren,
of year.
I know we'll be there Friday, and we'll bring up. Hopefully, we'll have the video.
Okay,
bring the
great.
camera and share the message of what we're trying to do. Well, they'll have. This isn't the only time. This input's going to be going on
No.
electronically as well, right? We can still have input on the website.
Yes, and anybody can email our office at any time and just provide their 2 cents.
Sure.
And then when we have the completed draft, that will be released to the public as well.
Right. Kind of like do it one more time.
Yes, there will be additional public input sessions. And then to have this document approved by council, we still have to have public hearings.
Public hearings,
There will be
right.
a public hearing through Planning Commission, and then there will be a public hearing through Town Council.
right.
There are, in essence, 4 to 6 additional public comment opportunities.
Right. So don't come back a year from now and say, "Well, I didn't know." We're going to try to tell as many people as we can.
Yes.
To please get involved, put your 2 cents worth in. Rally the forces.
Yes, absolutely.
So appreciate all the guys, all the things that you and your staff does.
Thank you.
It's great. Believe it or not, our town is working for us, and most people will. That's what they want. We get away from the politics of things, but we live in a great place. But it takes public input to make things move forward, and things change. Maybe it's time that, let's just make it better and look for the future. That's what I always tell people. If you have a goal to look for, it's real easy to reach it. But if just kind of writing it on the back of a napkin isn't
Right.
and the hard part about all this is getting the next council to follow it, and the council after that, and the council after that. And that's important that we show the input to it.
And the state helps with that because they have the requirement that typically every 5 years, the Planning Commission shall take up a review.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to change it, but they at least need to look at it
look
and
at it.
see, is this still appropriate?
Right. And things do change because some developer come in and did something, and we got,
Or COVID happens.
Yes, COVID happens. So anyway, this is a public input session. We want to encourage everyone to participate. If you can't get to the meetings, please take a look at the website. We'll put all the links here below the video, and you'll be able to go there. At least take a peek, at it. Look,
Absolutely.
see, and see if hey, that's okay with me, and then move on. But at least take an opportunity to take a look at it because all our inputs are important because we see things with different set of eyes.
And the town's broken down into 15 areas, so people can zero in on their neighborhood and say, what does my neighborhood, what should it look like in the next 20 to 30 years?
Right. Yeah, because it's going to, things like that change slow. Once they start building, it's you don't tear it down. It's great. Again, we will see you on Friday.
right.
Encourage
Thank you.
everyone to participate. Click on the links, take a look at the video, and we'll go from there. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren, for coming in. Thank you.